Isak, he's still training away from his Newcastle teammates after expressing a desire to leave St James's Park. Carve, any developments?
Well, the only developments today have been a couple of newspaper reports saying that as soon as Alexander Isak found out that he wasn't going to be invited to this family bonding day that Newcastle had at the training ground, that was the same day apparently that he moved out of his rental property in Newcastle. Now, I don't think the two events are connected at all. There have been reports that Alexander Isak moved house, didn't want to live in that rental property because it had been targeted by burglars. So I think there's always going to be stories about Alexander Isak every day. But the underlying story is that nothing much has changed. The player still wants to leave, and Newcastle United are not going to let him go unless their valuation is met. And that is a valuation that no one is willing to pay at the moment.
Carve says nothing much has changed. If it stays like that, if it continues through the window, is it more likely that come the end of the window, he's still wearing black and white?
It feels like as the days pass, that's becoming more and more likely. At this moment in time, there is no bid on the table. Newcastle rejected a bid from Liverpool in the region of around £110 million. That was about 10 days ago. There's been no movement whatsoever at this moment in time. Newcastle are only going to allow him to leave if their valuation is met. We understand their valuation is around £150 million. It's unclear whether they'll be able to get that over the course of the next few days, and if they can get a replacement lined up. And that is proving to be very difficult for Newcastle right now. They tried to sign Hugo Ekitike. He went to Liverpool. They tried to sign Benjamin Sesko. He went to Manchester United. There aren't many number nines that can come in and do anything near like what Alexander Isak has done in a Newcastle shirt.
I've said many times, he is contracted to us. He's our player. The club basically make the decision on his future. I don't know what that will be.
When you've got the best striker, people are going to come calling, and he's obviously been attracted by the calls that have come.
And you can't say I'm never going to play for Newcastle again, because if he doesn't make that move, then he's going to want to play. Every footballer wants to play matches.
He's still one of the best strikers in the world, so I do want him here.
Alexander Isak's let a lot of people down.
And that's the route he's going down, which, you know, will be hard to accept for everyone who's, a Newcastle fan.
I do genuinely think the best thing Newcastle could have done was sell Isak. You have to sell a player that doesn't want to be there, take the money, and then go and reinvest that money onto players.
If he's got an opportunity to go to the champions, then it's so difficult to say no.
We'll continue to bring in new faces over the summer. Confirmation that Leon has moved. That's what they're suggesting. The 18-year-old has gone from Italy to England, and the centre-back for about €35 million. Isak won't play for Newcastle against Villa. Of course, that still goes on. Mark Guehi, meanwhile, linked for that move from Crystal Palace to Liverpool. And you take a look at 30 million. It's an absolute bargain if they can get it over the line for the England international. Do they need all those players?
Yes. The simple answer.
Who's the priority?
Yes. The centre-back is the priority.
Right, so
Alexander Isak is not the priority.
Right.
I think anybody who witnessed Liverpool at the weekend and have followed them, Joe Gomez is injured again, and his injury record is not great, unfortunately. He's had terribly bad luck. They sold Jarell Kwanzaa to Bayer Leverkusen. So they, Endo and Gravenberch can play there for the odd game, but they can't play 30, 40 games in case Konate or Virgil van Dijk get injured. So they needed reinforcements. And it looks like they've certainly brought in a youngster, but I think Guehi is the priority if they are linked with him. I don't think an 18-year-old is, as much as he's got people have spoken about him really, really well, and he's got a great future ahead of him. It's difficult to put him straight into a Premier League side, isn't it, champion? So I think a more experienced centre-back is what they needed.
Yeah, that's right. And it looks like they're bringing in potentially 2 centre-halves as well at some point, because I asked Arne Slot about the need to strengthen at centre-half last week and he seemed to play it down somewhat. But first of all, they've got that deal sorted for Giovanni Leoni. It's £26 million up front plus add-ons. He's now due over here for a medical. That medical due to get underway later today as well. And the idea is for him to go straight into the first team setup. There'll be no intention of sending him out on loan. He's very much here to supplement the first team squad as it stands as well. And of course, we also know that Liverpool have that interest in Mark Guehi. Those negotiations with Crystal Palace ongoing, of course, and it's all about trying to decide on a fee now, come to at least some kind of compromise over a fee. So in order for Liverpool to then speak to Mark Guehi and ultimately persuade him to come to Liverpool, there is a feeling that Mark Guehi would like to come to Liverpool, albeit, of course, there was those noises last night that he would be happy to stay and see out the remainder of his contract. Just 1 year left on that contract. I don't necessarily see that would suit Crystal Palace, who would obviously want to get a fee in for Mark Guehi as well. So still some mileage in that one. And I think if we're looking at transfers as a whole for Liverpool between now and the end of this transfer window, then hypothetically there is still potential for Alexander Isak as well, depending on his situation and how that develops at Newcastle United and whether Newcastle are also looking to compromise on their valuation of the player. So it has been a busy summer for Liverpool in terms of the improvements that they've made to the squad, but the next one through the door is likely to be Giovanni Leoni.
Should we get that picture of young Macca back as well to take a look at
that was good.
your Premier League picks? Macca, I imagine Liverpool are number one for you?
Well, yeah, of course.
Let's all go home. That's all done.
Well, I mean, they won the league at a canter last year. They've invested well. They're going to invest again. So it's only right that I choose them. I've chose Manchester City second because of their investment. I just like the way that Pep's gone about choosing his players and the way they've played. I think the Club World Cup might, with Rodri's injured at the minute, which I hate because he's a fantastic player who's had terribly bad luck. I'd like to see him back and I think he'll make City tick better. But their signings, I think, were good signings. And, even Arsenal signings, I love Zubamendi and they bought the centre forward that they need.
Right.
So they'll be better. But, I think it was only natural to go with Liverpool.
Well, I suppose the concern is that other teams have got a lot better and then City won't be as bad as they were last season.
No.
Arsenal won't be dropping the points in the same manner in which they did as well. So that's why maybe it's going to be a lot closer. Than
I'll go along with that. As I said, I put Manchester City second above Arsenal because of those concerns. I just think City and Chelsea playing in the Club World Cup, I just think it'll take them a lot longer to sort of get into gear. So that's the one thing at the back of my mind that keeps worrying me. The fact that they've had a lot of the players had a hard summer the year before. They've had another hard summer this year. They've got the World Cup coming over. That was in my thought process when I ventured towards Liverpool, who've had a really good summer off.
Shaka,
yeah?
Who's your predictions?
I've got Liverpool to win the league.
How dare you have Liverpool?
Arsenal second, City third.
Sixth, yeah?
Yeah.
Sunderland going down, yeah?
I'm contracted to have Sunderland going down. This is part and parcel. But yeah, I think it comes down, and Chelsea fourth. Again, it comes to that front, that top three. I just feel, again, Liverpool showed themselves as the best team in the league. They've had the best transfer window as well this summer, so I make them favourites yet again going into this one. Arsenal, I think adding the striker and Gyökeres is exactly what they needed, but for them to finish second, Gyökeres has got to get 25, 30 goals. You've got to get a similar return from Saliba, from their defence, from their set pieces, from Gabriel. Everything that went well last season has to be maintained, and you add Gyökeres getting 25 or 30. I think that's the only way Arsenal keep it tight with those top three. And I don't think there'll be an awful lot between the top.
Staying healthy as well, Dan. No injuries and stuff. That's the key part. Yeah.
What's that?
Injuries, that's the key
Injuries?
part. Yeah,
hey, none of you have got Manchester United in the top six. Would you like to address that?
No.
Why not?
Because they finished so far down the league.
15th.
Yes, they brought in Cunha and Mbeumo and Sesko, but they've let a lot of...
I suppose people would argue, well, Tottenham finished lower and you've got them finishing sixth.
Yeah, I just think the manager will turn their team around. I like some of the signings. Unfortunately, James Maddison's been injured. I don't like that at all before the season's kicked off. I just think Manchester United need to bring in a few more players. For me, at this moment in time, if they brought in a centre midfield and a centre defender, I might put them higher. But I just don't think Mbeumo, Sesko, and and Cunha, they don't excite me enough, to be very honest.